But you know, it seems to me that each of your albums are so they're very well defined. They stand on their own. And do you guys ever make a conscious effort to make them sound different from one another, or is it more of a natural evolution?
It's pretty natural.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, we definitely don't want to make the same record.
Right.
So subconsciously, maybe the time between.
Oh, well, you lost me.
Yeah. The time between our records, we explore different things, try and figure out what might be more exciting to try when we get in the studio again,
and then I think they kind of take on a life of their own.
Yeah.
You know, once we're actually in the studio working on it day in, day out, there usually comes a point, maybe a quarter of the way through, a third of the way through, where you're working on Summerteeth. Mm-hmm. That's all you know.
You find
it has an identity.
You just hope that something happens, that'll like start to define it, and then you react to it and nurture it, just like let it flow out of you.
Abandon it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there comes a point where you can't do anything
Throw
else.
it out into the wilderness.
Is there ever a time where you take off, you're starting to work on the new album, and you realize maybe you're going in the wrong direction, and you have to kind of step back and...
No, we're not that hard on ourselves, we just like know that if we stay relaxed and just make music, that eventually something will start to happen.
Right.
You have to kind of trick yourself.
Yeah.
After being in bands for a long time and making records with the external things that can be pressure, like having a major label record deal, or having your last record be well received, or whatever. All those things you gotta kind of weed.
I started a fire over here. I'm sorry.
You gotta weed them out.
The other thing we do, we don't start making a record. We slide into making a record.
There's not a time where it's
we just keep
it's Tuesday. We
just keep recording.
It's Tuesday, and by 3 weeks from today, we have to have a record. We slide into the studio on a day off, and pretty soon we have 7 songs done, and we're like, "Whoa!"
Have all the records been that way?
Pretty much. Well, AM was done really fast, and that was really only a couple months after Uncle Tupelo broke up.
Right.
But being there, we just started on just like we were doing demos. AM was actually half demos too, but that was a different context because we'd never toured as Wilco.
Right.
But with being there, we just started kind of going into studios on our days off on the road, and we did the same thing with this. And shortly, we'll probably start, spending our spare time making songs.
How much time is there in between?
I don't know. Hopefully Hopefully we'll have another record out sooner.
I mean, we started making Summerteeth the day after we got off tour for being there.
Right.
Wow.
And we booked a week in the studio.
And we'd already recorded like 7 songs.
Yeah, I already had a bunch in the
That's amazing.
in the
You guys are owed a vacation, I would guess.
No, it is. That's what we like to do. I mean, that's what keeps you connected to music. You play every night and you tour, and that's one of the things that is invigorating is if you can get back in the studio and start creating new music, new stuff, and then that'll that'll help inform the live show a little bit, or add some kind of new energy to playing, the old songs. You maybe start to play them a little different. Just staying interested.
I guess it makes it easy when you love what you're doing so much.
Well, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to keep that kind of energy. There's definitely periods where you go on automatic pilot and you just try and get through a tour and get through some shows
or an interview.
I mean, never. I mean, rarely when you get up on stage that all disappears and you don't really feel like that's what you're doing.
Right.
But you know that sometimes you're more involved emotionally than others.
Right. Now, do you think that Summerteeth has a unifying theme that runs through it? Because to me, the first time I heard it, actually, it started to dawn on me that it was a very dark album, and there's a lot of references to death and violence and certain things like that. I mean, how conscious are you guys of that when you're putting the album together?
Well, there was an effort to make. We picked this group of songs really early on because we felt like they fit together thematically and musically, and there was an effort to make it all work. So Other than that, though, I really don't want to comment on a thread or a theme, because I think that should be really more open to what the listener feels or hears in it. But yeah, there's obvious, like, all of the, it wasn't a conscious effort, there's a subconscious effort apparently to make some of those things happen.
But again, that fits in with what you were saying earlier, that the album evolves and it takes on a life of its own, so of course themes come together.
Right.
Are you ever concerned about the lyrics that you're writing, if they're too dark? I mean, you make a lot of references on this album, like on ELT or Via Chicago, dreamed about killing you again last night and felt all right to me. Things like that. Are you worried about what people are going to think, or that they won't get your irony?
Well, I don't think it's ironic, but you know, it's like I can't. Nobody. I mean, you can't worry about stuff like that. You know, that would be. I mean, it's hard enough to like not edit yourself, you know, but to worry about how other people would edit what you're doing is like really, really, you know.
It would stunt the process, I would
imagine. Yeah, it's like the opposite of creating,
you know. Right. How when you guys actually get in the studio, what is the process like for you? Do you come in with songs already made, or is it more of an organic, like?
It's pretty damn organic, you know. There's not a lot of. Well, I mean, in terms of there isn't a plan for what direction something's going to go in.
I come in with a song that's skeleton, like an idea of a song that sounds passable to me on an acoustic guitar, and we set it in motion, you know. And decide on a rough place to start instrumentally, you know, like.
And there's other songs were kind of composed in the studio, you know, on the the far end of the scale.
And for you, Jeff, has being a father changed the way that you approach writing your music at all?
It's changed me in a lot of ways. I don't really know how it's changed what I do. I mean, practically, there's practical reasons that some things have changed. You know, like you can't play music loud late at night because he's sleeping, so tend to do more reading or writing as opposed to listening and playing.
What about? Do you envision your boy being a musician when you get older, or he gets older, rather?
I don't picture. Well, try not to picture him anything other than what he is. You know.
Well, let me back up a little bit then and talk again about the songwriting and the music itself. When do you guys listen to what the critics say? Does that affect you at all when you're writing your music?
Well, it's hard not to listen to them. I mean, it's hard not to. We get a lot of press.
Yeah.
So it's hard not to pick up a magazine, and once you see your picture, you're gonna at least browse the article or whatever. So it's hard to not pay attention to what the critics say, but at the same time, I don't think we think about it when we're making a record.
I've tried to think about it. I don't know I don't know how to keep. I don't have an attention span to keep it in my head for very long.
Which probably works out for the best, because you wouldn't want that hanging over you. Although, who cares really?
Well, it's just like. There's some you don't really trust anybody, especially the people that say nice things. You know, just don't trust. Don't give it a whole lot of authority. And
about a year ago or 2 years ago, you guys released Mermaid Avenue with Billy Bragg. Is there other plans to do another installment of that music from?
There was a lot of stuff recorded for it.
Yeah, we'd probably have to get together a little bit more. Because if we're gonna do another one, it has to be better. It can't be as if it's as good, it will be perceived as not as good.
Right, of course.
So it has to be better, and we probably have
at least
5,
different enough to be.
Yeah, I mean, it can't sound like outtakes.
Right.
And we probably have 5 songs now that we somewhat deliberately held back from the first one, knowing that they'd make a good core of a second record if we got around to it.
how did the songwriting process go with that? Was it difficult to create music around words that weren't your own?
I found it easy.
Yeah, I
Really?
loved it.
Easier.
Yeah, it was great.
Wow.
Half the work's done.
Right, of course. But was there ever a moment where you'd come up with this fantastic melody or this fantastic music and you'd think, man, I might want to save this for just a Wilco album?
No, I never feel like that about anything, you know. Like,
I mean,
it's like they're all
we
all
feel like
songs
that's
are
a
equal.
Wilco album.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Well, yeah,
for
of
that
course,
matter,
but
you know.
That's
There wasn't really any thought like, "Ooh, this is kind of," you know, and that's a very important. That was a really important record, and we really put our hearts into it. So nobody was thinking, "Oh, this is only like half a Wilco record."
Right.
So we better hold something back. I mean, we put everything into that record like we would
and it shows.
any
It
record.
definitely shows. It's excellent. Now, how's the tour going so far? You've been on the road for how long?
It's just pretty short. So far, like both trips have been, we've done, we did a short promotional trip in Europe, and that was great. That was actually a lot of fun, a lot of TV shows and stuff like that. Did an East Coast tour that went really great, and this is just almost, you know, like one of the shorter tours of the West Coast we've ever done. So it's been kind of easing into it. I mean, it's still pretty intense, because every day, since the tours are kind of compacted, every day there's a lot of stuff like this.
Yeah, which I'm sure is very tedious at times.
But things are fine. You know, we like
What's the worst part about touring for both of you? What do you think? Maybe there is no worst part.
I don't want to say this kind of stuff, 'cause that would be rude.
But you can be honest.
You know, there's whole entire days you have to spend on a bus.
Yeah.
You know, where, you're like, wow, you look at your tour itinerary, you're like, day off. And then you realize, well, that day off is really a 650-mile drive.
Right.
So you're looking out the window at a bus at a beautiful sunny day. You get off the bus, 12 hours later, and you're dizzy.
You're exhausted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're really, you can only watch so much TV and read so much and try to sleep, and
it's just hard to be healthy for me. I think that's the worst thing about being on the road.
You get sick a lot on the road? Or just
once somebody gets something, everybody gets it.
right, of
So.
course.
Yeah, it's just hard to eat.
You know, like that when we got all that lip fungus. We all got that.
Yeah, that's just too much information. Well, let me just finally ask you then, what do you guys think you'd be doing if you weren't making music? If you weren't in Wilco?
I don't know. I think I would probably be working at a record store or something like that. I have this sad to say.
Weren't in Wilco and weren't making music.
We're making music.
Like our ability to play
That's
instruments.
right. Your life took you on a different path. Let's say.
I think I'd still be playing music somehow, some way.
No matter what.
Yeah, but I mean, it might not be the way I earned a living.
Right.
But I'd be teaching.
Well, lucky for us, that's not an issue.
Why did you laugh at that?
What? The teaching?
He teaches.
I
He
used
used
to
to
teach junior
teach.
high.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I can't imagine having a teacher as cool as this.
He's not that cool.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's all the image. It's the rock star image. I get caught up in it. But anyways, well,
I'd be selling drugs.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, I'll keep your number for later, just in case the whole music thing falls apart.
Right.
And I'll keep your number too.
Thanks.